moving into Mason and Hamlin land again. This is one that's sort of my pride and joy right now. It's a 1915 unrestored model 93BF. It's one of the larger models of F-scale normal harmonium that they came out with toward the end of Mason and Hamlin's production run for building organs. They abandoned the organ business sometime. All the books say 1929 or 27, but I think that they abandoned it a bit earlier because we've never found in any of the databases there's no organ later than 1918. And so if something comes to light, of course, we can revise our, change our assumptions and beliefs. But until then, they quit making them somewhere right around the end of World War I. So this is 1915. I got this in June of 2012, and it was in Charlottesville, Virginia. And basically the case as you see it is what I got. It's in really beautiful condition. I put new pedal carpet on it. It came with the matching bench. And this one has, you can see it a little bit back there. Sorry, it's awfully dark. It has the finished back with the spindles. So when I say unrestored, I just mean I really haven't done the bellows or had to recover any of the mutes. I've done the stop board, completely cleaned the interior, cleaned the reeds, tuned the reeds. This one has 5 sets of reeds throughout plus sub bass, so this has 318 reeds. It has 3 soft stops. It has 2 soft stops in the bass and 1 soft stop in the treble. So all the rest of the 17 stops are speaking. 14 of these are speaking stops. Well, 2 of them are mechanical stops: the Vox Humana and the octave coupler. This has the luxury, really, I would say, of 2 complete 8-foot ranks throughout. So you have the number 1 rank, which is diapason and melodia. On this organ, you'd think, wow, that's extremely soft. But that's just because, however they did it on this organ, the swell over the melodia and diapason fit remarkably tight. So there's a chord with the swell closed, and then as the swell opens, it has incredibly great dynamic range, which is very valuable on some pieces because if you combine it with the flute, then the flute is very prominent when you're playing softly, which is nice because you can get the tremolo on it. And then when you swell it, really everything gets louder. And it's really beautiful effect, and it's again, I daren't touch the swell shade on this because I don't know if I did rehinge it. Thankfully, it doesn't need rehinging. If I did rehinge it, it may not turn out this good on the second go round. So I don't want to mess with success because it's so really great. It has second 8-foot set all the way through from bottom. From note 1 to note 61, the second 8-foot set, which is labeled as number 2. Now, number 2 in harmonium nomenclature would denote as the 16-foot board and clarinet. In this case, corno and contrabasso. On 90% of Mason and Hamlins that have it, these stops are 16-foot. But this is for whatever reason, they labeled that as an 8-foot as 2. Really oughtn't be, but I can't fault them. So these reeds are, I don't know if you can see this. There's another sound grill down underneath the organ. Of course, great lighting, eh? and the reeds are below the keyboard, below in the knee space, and that's an improvement that they took from their list model, which has the 16-foot contrabasso corno rank down in the knee area. And these are, in fact, half-inch wide framed list reeds, and they put them in a smaller model, which sold for considerably less than the list organ, had more sets of reeds, and has a terrific balanced sound. This is a very complete instrument. This would please just about anybody, but it's F scale, and so it was made for the normal harmonium market, such as it was. And so anyway, the corno reeds, they're a large sound. The contrast with the melodia is that you would say that the melodia is the flute at 8 foot, and the corno is the diapason at 8 foot. So it's a good study in contrast for having two sounds. They combine. You get a wonderful 8 foot chorus when you combine them. That's a good sound. Unique stop on this organ and on some late lists of this from this same 1915 period is the sub-bass dolce. So you just get a hint of sub-bass as opposed to the full stop, which is quite a growl and quite a volume. This is just a really nice Borden type sub-bass. So you have the diapason available as a soft stop. And this is created with a second top mute on where the roof of the reed cells opens, and the full stop is that. The muted stop, I really like to call it, a muted stop as opposed to a soft stop, because really, here's with the swell closed, there's with the swell open. There's not a lot of dynamic range. There's a little more clarity with the swell open. Then, of course, here's this. The full stop is really just as soft, but when you open the swell, it gets very loud. So this is actually be better called a muted. The idea that's a muted stop. One of the most important stops that you can have on any reed organ, just for versatility and pleasantness, is the Aeolian harp. And that's at 2 foot pitch, created with 2 reeds per note. So you have a vibrato. There's also the second soft stop on the organ is, that's interesting. I didn't count the sub-bass dolce as a soft stop because it's actually such a different character. It deserves a name of its own, a class of its own. It's almost like having a second pedal stop that's derived on a large reed organ. So the muted sound of the viola dolce and the full sound of the viola. So moving on, of course, there's a fan tremulant in the back. It affects the seraphone, which is what you call, a string sound. And with the tremulant. So contrast with the melodia. Very round than the melodia. A little clearer, thinner, and weaker on the seraphone. Other thing, with the tight-fitting swell on the melodia, you get that same prominence to the back organ with the swell closed and the mutedness of the melodia with the swell closed. Okay, so there's melodia by itself. You can really hear the seraphone come on as soon as you pull it. Then when you swell the organ, the melodia then overshadows the seraphone, but it's still there. The Celeste on this one is developed in the most traditional Mason and Hamlin method for their medium-sized organs, where you're the one knob draws this, and this. This is the Melodia Dolce, which again is a little roof that's over the tops of the reeds that opens as a separate mute and gives that soft sound as I demonstrated on the bass side. But the characteristic of that method of construction is there's the muted 8-foot, there's the full 8-foot, the normal stop of Melodia, then both together is a third character of sound. So adding the soft stop on a Mason and Hamlin is actually giving you a third sound from one set of reeds. So hats off to Mason and Hamlin for buying that patent. Actually, they combined two patents that they bought around 1877, one from a Mr. Perry and one from a Mr. Kent. And that gave them the ability to continue to use this system from 1877 until they went out of business, where I think that was probably closer to 1920. But anyway, it was something that they continuously used, and it's brilliant. What also happens when you have both the top mute and the normal mute together is those reeds are now speaking sharp because they're getting more wind from two directions. So they're sharp. So what does that mean when you play it with a second 8-foot? You get a beautiful Celeste effect. There would be the straight sound. There's the Celeste by adding the Dolce. So anyway, to save time, Mason and Hamlin put that combination together onto one knob, number 5 Voix Celeste. Part of the normal harmonium standard was having the octave coupler just move in one direction, which was straight up from the bottom octave of the organ to the top, instead of having separate bass and treble couplers with the bass coupling down and the treble coupling up. They thought it was judged that if you had to pick one, it would be better to pick the straight up octave coupler, because when brought on by full organ for that full organ effect, the bass coupler by itself can, depending on the different stops that the organ has, the bass coupler can really incapacitate an organ at particularly at full organ, because it can turn the left hand part just into mud, instead of a straight upward octave coupler always adds more clarity than would a divided style of coupler. So there's the coupler. We already talked about the corno, number 2, the second 8-foot rank of jumbo reeds. Then the last stop that this has, and it's not unique to this organ by any means, they offered it on smaller actions as, so this stop is on 3 other Mason and Hamlin actions. It's a 16-foot solo clarinet, and this is in a separate reed chest at the back of the organ. So it represented generally about a $20 upgrade, and in those days, that was a $20 gold coin in those days. So imagine what that is. Probably about $1,200 to $1,500 today is what this stop cost over, in today's dollars, above what the bass organ was costing. And these organs, of course, weren't cheap. This was $400. The list I showed you earlier was $750. So here's the clarinet. Stop talking. Here's the clarinet. Anyway, that's with the Vox Humana. Interesting to note, the reeds in this chest are sitting there vertically. So they're not affected by gravity in terms of the gravity's ability to make a reed tend to start slower, because it requires more wind to get the springiness of the reed into action when the reed is laying horizontal, as opposed to setting the reed vertically. Then the tongue is essentially gravity neutral. So it's a pretty set. When you combine it with a couple other stops, you get pretty amazing effect. I find that the Melody Dolce, the muted 8-foot with it, really gives it a more woodwindy kind of quality. You can combine it with the 4-foot sound and add Vox Humana. Oh, that's pretty too. Okay, so that kind of concludes the tour of the 93 BF, which is nice, intact, unrestored organ, still running on the 1915 bellows and all the 1915 mutes and leathers and everything. So this is really cool that you have some of these actually survived completely intact for going on 100 years. Now, if the bellows haven't completely been played out on this, and I do play this thing all the time, if the bellows aren't played out by 2015, I think it's celebrating its centenary. I will replace the bellows just on principle. So the next little organ, this one I just restored. I got it last summer, and whoops, sorry, bad camera work. This an obscure model of Mason and Hamlin. We don't know a lot about this. There's one other registered with the Reed Organ Society, which resides in Australia. The peculiarity of this is, well, it's in a case that was introduced in 1880, yet this one's dated 1910. It's not a cataloged model. The action that this has was a new one to me. It's not in any catalog. So they made a small scale organ and they put a C scale keyboard in it, and of course C scale reeds. This has 4.5 sets of reeds plus sub bass. So if that sounds like what I mentioned that the list had, it is. It's dead on. It has basically the same kind of footage and character of stops that the list organ does, but at a tiny scale. It's not a big full-toned organ. It's it's a very intimate sound. It has a 16-foot Borden and clarinet all the way through. It has an 8-foot diapason melodia all the way through. It has the 4-foot flute and viola all the way through. And in the treble, it has the Seraphone stringy tone stop. It has a derived Vox Celeste. It has a straight upward octave coupler, a fan Vox Humana. It has one soft stop in the entire organ, which is the viola dolce. And it has the Aeolian harp. So it's C scale, and this is something that almost never happens on an American-made or on a suction-winded organ. The keyboard divides at the alto, E, and F, just like on a European pressure harmonium. So that means that this Aeolian harp goes all the way up to the E above middle C. So if you've ever missed doing that, playing a full C chord on your Aeolian harp, hey, there's hope. All you have to do is find the third one of these in existence, and you can have one. So it's got the normal Mason and Hamlin reeds. It's just they squeezed all these 286, I think, reeds and with sub bass into a cabinet that would be a lot better suited if it didn't have a 16-foot rank all the way through. So the reservoir is pretty small. The feeders aren't really allowed to open all the way. So it's a bit short, a bit shy on wind at full organ. You have to, and the other problem is this is like this institutional kind of cabinet, and it places the treadles in a kind of awkward position. They're up off the floor by an inch or two because they have another board running under them. And this has this cover comes down to mouse-proof and tamper-proof the organ when it's not in use. So that little design feature, that's pretty decent idea if you're if it's in a country church or a men's lodge or something that's could have rodents running wild for 6.5 days of the week. To be able to close it, this design has the cabinets and cupboards, has some shelves on this side, and has about the same thing. Just I guess you can stack hymnals and whatnot in these, and has just a simple flip down lid. And if you've seen this in the videos that I've put up independently of this organ, it has the Venetian swell on the back, that the way that opens and closes there as you operate the knee swell. And it's a chapel style, finished back, all of that. Pretty little organ. Was a complete basket case when I was given it by another collector, and he didn't really have any interest in trying to bring it back because he has a tremendous amount of work as a pipe organ builder, and the reed organ activity he was going to undertake in the next however long wasn't going to include this one, he told me. So he gave it to me, said, if you restore this, you can have it. So it's a wonderful little organ. It's just the sweetest sound. It's got a lot of variety, and this might end up in my bedroom just as the, because it has just a very intimate, gentle tone. It's not, doesn't really belong on stage or anything like that. But it's cool. It's very cool. The Venetian swell is very cool, and fortunately, it was still in the bad shape that it was in. It had been dropped. The bad shape it was in, it was still, being able to be brought back. All righty.